Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm getting my machine all set up here. Let's see, hopefully I'm not plagued with technical issues again this week. Yeah, I turn off the light behind me, I guess. I don't know I actually prefer to work in a darker office, but I have this light, this glaring light right in front of me. I assumed it provided better contrast for the video, so let me know if it feels more like a Batman movie than it does an instructional how-to type of setting. Let's see. Hey Wesley, how's it going? What I might try is I'm actually trying to get remote access into another machine here real quick. This new quick assist. I wonder if I can use that to connect instead of having to use remote desktop connection. So let's put the code in. So Windows 10 fan, you're asking what build I'm currently running on my desktop, where I am right now. That well, actually, my Surface Book. I'm just running the anniversary update. Let's see. Looks like it's gonna work. I think it might actually let me connect here. It is. Although I don't think that this is necessarily going to be ideal for what we're doing for debugging. It's a very cool feature though. So if you haven't seen on Windows 10 yet, mash your Windows key real quick and do a search for Quick Assist. I just saw a video on this yesterday. I had no idea that we even built this into Windows, but it's really pretty amazing. For anybody out there who has an older family member or someone who's just not super technical, and you've had to try and get them into Skype, get them to share their desktop, or maybe you've had to download something like TeamViewer or some other type of remote connectivity tool utility. It's really difficult, especially in Skype. I've noticed because there's a couple different versions of Skype. I don't know which one the friend of mine has, and there's certain elements that appear on screen sometimes and then they disappear, and it's hard to get them to figure out where they are to share their screen. And even when they share their screen, it's hard to describe where certain things are. This quick assist, I can just let's see, maybe I'll see if I can share my desktop real quick. Yeah, we'll switch over here, and I'll minimize the chat window. This quick assist is pretty cool. So this is actually another desktop on my another machine here on my desk. You can see that I have full mouse control over it. I believe I can draw on it too. Yeah, so if I get the pen here. Nope, looks like I did something wrong. Yep, now exit that drawing mode. Yeah, it looks like I broke it. Okay, but I think it's supposed to work. I don't know what is happening here though. Still got connectivity. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the drawing portion is a little buggy. I'm all locked up. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yeah, now I can draw. So I can draw a little heart on there, and that's actually appearing over on, actually I can probably just show you on this screen here. So as I draw, you can see probably down in the corner, I'm just kind of scribbling stuff all over that. It looks pretty cool, rather. So that's Quick Assist. I'm going to be using that quite a bit, at least in my personal capacity, as I'm helping family and friends with computer issues and questions. So pretty amazing little tool. I don't think it's going to really be sufficient for what we're doing here today, though. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down and yeah, leave that alone. But still pretty neat. My desktop PC, I don't know what build I'm running. I'm actually right around there, right around 14.901. So it's not too terribly ahead of the Insider's fast ring. I'm really impressed with, here I am. I'm on I get nightly builds sometimes, and we're actually able to get this stuff out to the Insiders and the fast ring almost as quickly as they get it out to me. And so it's pretty amazing to see just that kind of distance that used to be there drastically reduce. And we're pretty much almost on the same builds. Let's see. Yeah, so I need to figure out remote desktop here real quick. Let's see. So for some reason, in a recent update, my quick actions across all of my devices apparently have dropped the Wi-Fi toggle off. That's the only one that's turned off. So it's like 3 laptops now that I have. The Wi-Fi quick action is turned off, and so I just to pop that back on. I went into if you type in quick actions into Cortana, it'll come up with a quick actions menu, and then from there you can add or remove quick actions, and I have to turn on my Wi-Fi one again, so I can actually see if we're on the same network, these two devices. Nope, that's why I can't connect to it. Okay, so I was having issues with my remote desktop here, and the problem was I wasn't connected to the same network. Hey, Sean, actually, you know what? I was spending some time. The reason why the stream took a little, longer to get started is because I was actually looking at Battlefield.com, and there's some really interesting things going on there. I noticed that whenever, for instance, there is a hierarchy not supported, these types of errors that are being thrown whenever you're looking at the console. So if you open up Battlefield, or even before then, if you go to Bing or Google or something like that, and you press F12 on your keyboard to open up the developer tools, and you switch over to the console, and then you navigate to Battlefield.com with your console opened, what you'll notice is there will be a couple of exceptions in there, and exceptions are usually indicated by bright red lettering and stuff. It'll say something about a hierarchy problem or an interface not supported. And I was digging into those items in particular. One of the first things it'll do is it'll say it can't find a variables.css file. And that's actually coming from a source map, which we can talk about those here in just a minute. But apparently the source map file that is referenced is not, or the file that is referenced in the source map rather, is not on the server, and as a result we have a 404 there. And then the two exceptions that happen later on, one of them happens inside of a 5-year-old version of jQuery. So Battlefield.com, as cool a website as it is, it's using web components and stuff, which is very modern polyfill. They're using Polymer, I think. And as modern as all that is, they're using a 5-year-old version of jQuery. And in that 5-year-old version of jQuery is a portion of logic that is set up to test support for various different things. And the first thing that they do, or rather one of the first things they do, is they have this long string of HTML. And the HTML starts with, or this string rather, starts with 3 blank white space characters. So space, 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 and then they have the markup for a link tag, which is usually used for referencing an icon like the favicon in a browser, or for an external style sheet or something like that. Then they have table tags and all this other stuff, and then an input tag at the very end. But the main thing there was those 3 first spaces, the white space. And then they create a div, they create an element, and they set that div's inner HTML to that string. So now that string gets pushed into the div, it gets parsed, it constructs a little DOM tree inside the div, and this is, hey, Windows 10, yep, I love the debugging talk too. So it creates a DOM tree inside the div. The first node is a text node. Those 3 characters are represented by a text node. So that's the very first node inside there. So if you called div.firstChild, you're going to get back a reference to the text nodes, or to that text node rather. The second child would be the link element. For some reason, and I've not quite been able to nail this down yet, what happens next completely baffles me. Next, we create a document fragment, and I've talked about document fragments I think about 2 weeks ago maybe on here, and document fragments are really great for whenever you need to carry sibling elements around that don't have a common container. So if you have like 2 paragraph elements but they're not inside of a div or something like that, obviously if they're inside of a div, you can take that div and you can put it someplace in the DOM, but you can't take 2 things and put them someplace in the DOM, because you can't hold 2 things at one time, basically, with the DOM references. So what we do is we create this temporary, capsule, basically called a document fragment, which is just a way to reference a portion of a tree in the document. We put the 2 elements inside there, and then you can take that document fragment. Now you have a thing, and you can put it someplace in the DOM or someplace in a window or something like that. And when you do that, the document fragment portion kind of just withers away, and you're left with those 2 elements where you put that document fragment. So all that to get to the next step. So we have that long string of HTML, 3 characters at the beginning, that is put as the inner HTML of the div element. So if you call div.firstChild, you get those 3 white space characters. And what happens next is we create a document fragment, We call the document fragments a child method, which lets us put stuff inside there, and we pass it the reference to that div's first child, which is the first 3 characters. So what you wind up with is a document fragment that has a text node inside of it. And that is consistent across Chrome and Edge, as I was just checking here side by side. So if you have a text node, you put it into a document fragment, and you call document fragment.firstChild, the reference to it, you're actually going to get the text node back. Now what happens next is really strange. In the jQuery support logic, which again is half a decade old, but it's being used on battlefield.com, presumably because they want to support IE8, IE7, IE6, and stuff like that. Although I don't think Web Components has that deep of a support, and so it's interesting. The resources have varying degrees of historical browser support, and so what happens next is interesting. So in jQuery support, what they wind up doing is they clone the text node, and when you clone a node, there's an optional argument that you can pass that's, whether it's a deep clone or a shallow clone, whether or not it should clone all of the elements inside it or not. And they pass true to that, which says we want to clone not just the fragment, but we want to clone everything inside it, including the text node. Once you do the clone, for some reason in Edge, there is no longer a first child. The text node just disappears. This does not reproduce if I do it in a separate document. And so, in fact, I went and I downloaded jQuery 1.6.4, which again is from September of 2011. And I put this into a page, and the issue does not repro there. Whenever I clone, when I get to that support logic and it clones the document fragment and it looks for the first child, it's still there. But for some reason on battlefield.com, that's not the case. jQuery 1.6.4 behaves differently on its own inside of a document than it does on battlefield.com, and I've not yet understood why that is the case. And so I need to go in and kind of probe that issue a bit more, figure out what is causing this. It's definitely really bizarre. I've gone through, there are many things that I've done so far. The CSS variables reference that comes up 404 whenever we're parsing the source map, and the source map is just a way to reconcile the code that was fed to the client browser with the code that the authors actually wrote. So sometimes we write, instead of CSS, we'll write Sass or less or something like that, and it's a different syntax, visually different. It's not the same, and we generate a CSS file which the browser can understand, and so then that CSS file is actually given to the browser, but it's generated from the code that you wrote. So it's a little bit different than what you wrote, but it's really the browser can't understand Sass or less natively, and so import node throws an error for some reason in Edge when the default parameter is false. Ryan, if you have that line of code, if you could paste it in here, I mean, if it's trying to import the first child, then there simply won't be a first child if the deep parameter is false. Because remember, whenever you're calling clone node, let me just double check this real quick too. If I do. So if I go to MDN, for instance, and I look up the clone node method, somehow I wound up on the German one. Let me go back and get onto the English one. Here we go. So it's, the deep node is the new node that would be, that's the deep node, deep. Okay, true if the children of the node should be also cloned. Yeah, so whenever you pass in true, that clones all the nodes inside of it. Whenever you don't, it just clones the outer node itself. So you have a JS Fiddle here. I'll load that up real quick. So JS Fiddle 9OF 9EEOJ revision 1. Okay, so we have fail. So you're trying to do document import node fragment. Oh, okay, I see. Import node fragment false. Now, did you find this to be an issue on the Battlefield .com site. Let's see. Let's see. So document import node. The second argument there is okay, I see what you're saying. So you're talking about import node. I was thinking clone node. So Boolean indicating whether the descendants of the imported node need to be imported. So if you're saying just import the parent but not the children, the fragment but not the fragment contents, that fails. Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. So this is a good reduction between Chrome and Edge for a general browser interop issue. If you replace the import node false with import node true and then remove all the children in Fiddler, then the page loads fine. So let me check that out real quick. Let's see. I've got so much stuff open up on my screen here. Give me just 1 second to kind of close it all down. Yeah, but it's still mind-blowing when I come across modern websites that are using very modern technologies, but they usually have these very old versions of jQuery. I just saw the same thing the other day. I think it was either TweetDeck or New York Times was using again like a 5 or 6 year old version of jQuery. And this is actually it's a good example of why browsers have to do some of the things they do, why we change the user agent string and stuff like that. And it's because once code is written on the web, it's really hard to get it unwritten or updated. So yeah, Matteo Contrini, sorry for butchering your name there. JS is JavaScript. I was born for this. Let's see here. I told the people in Brazil that JavaScript was made in 10 days, and it took about 9 months to make me. So it's, I guess Brendan Ike kind of wins that race. Let's see. Speaking of which, if you like the history of this stuff, the history of JavaScript and everything, the Web Platform Podcast, I believe it was called. Yeah, so this one right there, the Web Platform Podcast with Brian Cardell, Browser Wars and Standards Battles. That just came out on the 12th. Some really kind of cool history there. So if you look up the Web Platform Podcast, episode 101 with Brian Cardell, I think you'll enjoy that. Lots of fun, lots of historical stuff there. It actually talks about the a bit of history about Java and JavaScript and everything, and shares that like these two things were contemporaries. Actually, they were kind of created around the same time, within a year of each other. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to check out. I need to close my Fiddler add-ons and stuff. I've got a whole bunch of Fiddler stuff going on as well. I think actually now I could remote in my machine if I wanted to. Let's see. Okay, so I've got Battlefield open. Inspect elements. And if you're looking for your developer tools, if you're used to right-clicking and finding them, and it's not there, that just means that you've not indicated to Edge that you are a developer and that you're interested in developing stuff. So if you press the F12 key, or if you go up to the action dots, like up on the top left of your browser window, and click there and go down to F12 Developer Tools, it'll actually inform you that it is now going to add Inspect Element and View Source to the context menu, so you can right-click from that point forward. Okay, so we're looking for import node, which I think you said is inside Web Components min. So, okay, I see Q is a reference here. Now you're saying that's on line 1765. Okay, I must be looking at the wrong file. So you're saying it's on webcomponents.js. Now they have a min. Perhaps you swapped out the min for the JS in an autoresponder by a Fiddler. Okay, yep. So last week, whenever we were looking at this issue, what we did, one of the great things that we can do with Fiddler is actually swap out minified files for the fuller files. This would actually be a really great F12 feature, like if F12 just automatically did that for known libraries. That'd be fantastic, right? So who knows? Maybe I need to talk to the F12 dev team and see if they can do something like that. Already, if the file has a min suffix towards the end, min.js or something like that, we actually assume that it's not your code, that it's library code, and so we won't throw you inside there whenever you're debugging your code. But this, that could be a neat alternative feature. So let me see if I can get remote desktop into my other machine here. Hey, all right, looks like I'm gonna be able to get in. Maybe not. Oh, yep, here we go. Enable smart sizing. So I actually have a couple different languages on my keyboard too, which always causes me problems. There we go. Cool. Okay, now I'm logged in. So now if I were to share my desktop, let's see. Now I've got my other machine here. So let's see, what we're going to be doing is we're going to send, run, and we'll call Microsoft Edge. And it is set to Portuguese again, I believe. Where's my language settings? Здравствуйте. Let's see, I'm trying to find. Yeah, I'm stuck on my Portuguese keyboard. I'm trying to figure out how to send window key space to this. That's not working. Why can I not change my language here? Okay, well this is really just fantastic. This is going to be a problem if I can't change my keyboard back over to English. Normally it shows the keyboard selection down there. Let's see if anybody else has a tip. Settings, time, and language. Yeah, I guess I have to go that way, won't I? Okay, give me 1 second here. Someday we'll have an episode that goes off with no problems. Let's see, until then. Yeah, WinSpace normally works with me, but right now I'm remoted. Like I've just got a remote desktop connection, so whenever I hit WinSpace, it's actually being received by the parent OS. So I have to change it, I guess, manually inside the settings here. Oh, that's network and internet. There we go. Time and language. Region and language. There we go. Set English as my default. Okay, so I think now I should be set. Let me switch back over here to my desktop view. All right, so let me try. Just what am I doing here? Okay, so apparently, was it Windows F? Yeah, Windows F will bring up the feedback utility. See, yeah, WinKeyR will говорить по-русски. Да, немного, но не очень хорошо. Я не понимаю по-русски. Let's see. Okay, what am I doing here? Yeah, I'm gonna jump into Microsoft Edge now. Let's see. So this is Artem is really testing my Russian here. Let's see. He says, "Откуда знаешь русский язык?" Yeah, I'm really struggling with the last word there. Откуда, I think, is where. Like, where did you learn it, or how did you learn it? Try to think. Like, friends is. I don't think friend is друг друга. That's like each other. Kniga. I use kniga a little bit. So let's see. Oh, come on. Okay, I'm still stuck in Portuguese. Now at least I can switch over to English. There we go. Okay, so Microsoft Edge, and we're going to go to http battlefield.com. All right. Artem, чи говорить английский? I think it is. Потому что я не понимаю по-русски. Okay, so we're broken here with this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up the chat on a separate window over here so I can keep a kind of an eye on what's going on. Come on. All right, sweet. All set up here. Okay. So, and I'm going to maximize this. So now we should be seeing my full desktop here. Okay. All right, now I'm going to load up Fiddler real quick. So if you don't have Fiddler, you can go grab that. This is going to be one of the tools that we use kind of most frequently whenever we're doing this debugging and stuff. I mentioned a couple weeks ago what Fiddler was. Fiddler is this web proxy debugging utility. And so if you think about your web browser here and the server here, and the requests go from here to here, and the responses come from here to here, Fiddler sits in between, and it can actually, capture requests or capture responses and modify them in transit. And so we use this to make changes to some of the resources that are loaded on websites. And so you notice here I actually still have a few different Battlefield files, autoresponders set up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete all of these. I might leave the web components because I think this is already the full web components file that we want. And I can see that that is loading this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and run, and we'll run code and paste this in. What? Do I not have code? Visual Studio Code? Okay, I need to rectify this situation right quick. So I'm going to go get code.visualstudio.com. Turn off my auto capture so I'm not messing with this traffic. And I'm going to download Visual Studio Code for Windows because I gotta have my Visual Studio Code. All right, it's not that bad. It's like 30 megs or something, right? Let's see, we'll run that. And I'm going to go ahead and accept and install. Open with code. Yes, I dig these options. Of course, you don't have to use VS Code, but all the cool kids are. So once I get this going, then I'll be able to open up the web components and make the small change that Ryan was mentioning earlier, which is making one modification to the import node line of code that's inside the web components file, and that may be the final reduction. So I want to see if I actually have this supported now inside my command prompt. So I do cmd code inside path and paste. Yep. Okay, this is what I was hoping for. So it just opens up Visual Studio Code straight to the file that I kind of pasted in here. And now I'm looking for import node. Now it's around line 1765 if I recall correctly, and I think there's, I don't know if it was, yeah, don't quite remember how to do this. So you can actually, there's actually a shortcut command to jump straight to line 1755, but let's just go the old-fashioned way. 1765, I think it was. So we have some nodes here. The pin child, next sibling. Control comma, is that what it is? Nope, doesn't look like it. Not for me at least. Let's see here. So I'm going to do a quick search for import node. I can see there's a reference just above me. Document arguments. Now this is supposed to be with a fragment of 1745. Somehow managed way down there. Okay, so this is, oh, so they're doing call on import node then. If this is the line you're referring to. So we have the document right here. The node itself is the document fragment, presumably, right? So if we were to yeah, because clone is being called from someplace, and the node here is, I mean, we'll just go ahead and debug this and jump in and refresh the page again. So by putting the debugger statement inside there, this one here, anytime the console or the DevTools are opened up and they encounter the debugger statement, it's actually going to create an ad hoc breakpoint for us in the code. So it'll just stop execution immediately and let us proceed on our merry way. with debugging the application. So turn on my Fiddler capturing, so it will actually substitute out those files again. This is only the really the only one that I care about is the web components. And then from within the console, just hit Control R to refresh the page. So you notice there's the issue with the source map where it talks about the variables and the specified in the source map are missing, and yeah, that's so they apparently don't have the variable CSS file on the server itself. And so whenever we parse the CSS file and we see the source map, we then go to load the source map, and the source map tells us to load this variables.css, which doesn't exist on the server. So you have to just ignore that one thing right there. So this is where we are at now. And let's see if I can bump up the resolution just a little bit for y'all. And we can close this sidebar there. Okay, so we're looking at, in this case, Node is a generated wrapper. I can do Control tilde to bring up my console here. Looks like there's some type of rendering issue there. Yeah, I think this is an issue with me broadcasting like remote desktop while I'm trying to zoom in the controls here. But okay, we'll see here just quickly what unsafe wrap node generates, and I think it's going to be that document fragment. No, so this generates an input element. So if we're to get the node name, that'll give us input. What I'm going to go ahead and do is add a conditional breakpoint right here. So we do a breakpoint, right click on it again, write condition. We'll do console.log, and then we'll do unsafe unwrap node dot what was it, node name? We'll see, node.name, and false so that we don't break, and then just press play there. I have that debugger statement in there, which is kind of annoying. Let me see if I can actually get rid of that real quick. So this is going to be inside web components min, and I just need to do a quick search for clone node once we refresh. So I'll break out of this, delete this guy. And I'll do a clone node search. No, but it's going to be inside web components. I might just go grab the newer version of the web components file so that I'm looking at the same thing you are, Ryan. Because this is dealing with these minified files. Pretty painful. Yeah, see, that just takes me all the way out of web components without even seeing clone node, which was there whenever we looked at it. I mean, it's sitting right inside here. Original import node. Look for that. Yeah, see, something's weird here. I guess I need to go grab the newer web components min file. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go and get web components. .org, and we'll just download this file real quick. So download web components.js. 722. All right, so we'll save this. Let me jump out of desktop view for just a second here. And I'll unzip these and put them on my machine. So extract all here, so 712. Okay. So I've got the web components min.js right here. Actually, there's web components.js. That's actually what we want to load. So I'm going to go ahead and copy. If you right click, you can do, or shift right click, you can do copy as path, which is super, super helpful. Actually copies the path to the file. We'll jump back inside here. And let's see, we'll put in a new autoresponder for this one right here and point that to the actual path for the file. You might have to actually go in and take out the quotes around it though. Save that, and then I can actually open this up inside code. Yep, so once I get this open, then we'll go ahead and make that small change. So here's web components. Do a quick search for import node. Now you said this was around, actually it looks like it took me right to it. It's just around 1745. You're saying if this is changed to true, then it works. So let's make that one small change and we'll go back and refresh Battlefield. So I think it's just, you know, that the whole issue of the unresolved attribute not being popped off of there is a JavaScript issue. You have to remove the children. So, but in this case, I need to actually, I want to do that just for the document fragment, right? I don't want to do that for everything, because presumably this is being used for things other than document fragments. Yep. Yeah, I'm aware of that. So we can loop over the anytime there is a first child, we just remove them. Yeah, I guess that's okay as long as they're not cloning, you know, divs and stuff like that. That's I guess what my concern is right now is, you know, clone node can be used on many different types of things. It can be used on, you know, actual elements. It can be used on individual elements with no children in them. It can be used on elements with children in them. It can be used on document fragments which host children. So we certainly can come in here and say, you know, a statement like while node dot first child, which is going to be true as long as there's something inside there. You can say you know, node dot remove, or you can actually just do, you know, node dot first child dot remove or something. And so you're actually putting it inside clone. While clone first child. So clone is being set right here. So at this point, the call to import node has already ran by the time clone is being set. So if the issue is with import node, yeah, this is, so now you're confusing me just a little bit here. If the issue is with import node runs before clone is actually assigned. So removing the items from clone wouldn't necessarily resolve the issue. But let's, I mean, I can try it from node here. Actually, it might have just been the case that saying true on that resolved it for the site. So Control B to hide my sidebar. And I'm going to take out what I just added. And and switch that back to true right here and refresh Battlefield. Yeah, interesting. So apparently just switching that to a deep import resolves it as well. And so you could either, like you're saying, I guess remove the children, or deep import all of the children. Either way, I mean, those are probably functionally the same in that if you don't remove them, you really only have one adopted node, the host container, but none of the children are adopted, and that causes a problem. Or you can remove all of them, and you don't have the problem of the children, not being adopted into the document itself. And so this whole issue, for those who might be scratching their heads a little bit, what we're kind of talking about at this point, whenever you're talking about importing nodes, we're talking about basically multiple different documents that are in memory. And nodes that exist inside one document, you'd like to take them and put them into a different document, and you can't just jam them in there. It's for security purposes. Otherwise, people would be able to put stuff into pop-up windows and stuff like that in an unsafe way that might cause to people having their bank accounts and stuff compromised. And so what you have to do is actually be able to import the node. And so there is some criteria in place determining whether or not you can import node A into document A or node A into document B. And that's what we're looking at right now. And so in this case, we're saying that we want to import the first example that I saw there whenever we were going through the debugger was that we wanted to import the option control. So there's an option element that was being imported. In fact, I might go ahead and just try and nope, not on this file. I just opened up code on the wrong machine. So I might just go ahead and try that by coming down here and just seeing what each one of these things are. So if we do console log, and we'll say cloning a, and then we'll call unsafe wrap node name. So that should give me the node name itself. Curious if we do that and we call false again, we'll let that stick to what it was by default. Open up our dev tools. And we'll refresh real quick to see what we get. So this should tell me each time the clone method is being called, what it is being called against. Okay, cool. So let's zoom in a little bit here. So you notice the first time it was called, it was cloning a empty string or something right here. Let me try this again. Let me look at this code real quick. Because we want to see actually what it is cloning. So unsafe wrap node, and it might actually be node name. Let's try this. So refresh this. A little bit of DOM 101. I believe it's node name. Yeah, so here we go. Interesting. So you notice whenever we do the first time around, it clones an input element. Second time around, a document fragment. Third time around, a text element. And then we're told there's a hierarchy request error. And then finally around here, another document fragment. So it could be the case console log is not a synchronous operation, meaning it doesn't always it's not always in the order that you call it. So if we give it two commands, we're not guaranteed necessarily that the first command will finish before the second one begins. And so in this case, this hierarchy request, this could be related to the text, it could be related to the document fragment. It would really take a bit more kind of stepping in there to see exactly what's happening. And so if we wanted to, we could set that debugger, set a breakpoint again, start to step through the operation itself and see if we can identify what this hierarchy request error is and what this not supported error is as well. And so there's the last time around, so it's called what, 4 times, 3 times here, 1 time down here. And let's take a step in and just look at this one more time pretty closely. And so we know that this is called a few different times. I just leave myself a note inside here. So first it's an A, then it's a doc frag, then it's a text element, and then it is a doc frag again, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's what we saw inside the dev tools there. Document fragment text, document fragment input. Okay, so it wasn't an anchor, it was an input. So we have the wrap function. A node is passed in, deep is passed in, and an optional document is passed in. If the optional document exists, then clone is going to be equal to wrapping a bunch of stuff here. So there's actually quite a bit of logic. I'm going to format this just a little bit differently so that I can see it more easily. So put clone over there. Here's the else to that. So clone could be two different things. The first one is original import node call. So we're just calling import node and using the optional document in this case. So actually what I want to do now is I want to know if optional document is being called for which one of these items. And so we'll do console log calling clone node on. We'll do node.node name. And actually this unsafe wrap. I don't know that node is going to be an actual node, but let's see here if this works or not. And we'll put opdoc inside here. So calling, a little bit of typo there. Clone node on node.node name with opt, and then we'll either have a we'll get us a true or false over here if we do the double inversion. So we'll restart this. Should expect to see some messages here in just a moment. So Control R, refresh that. So awesome. Okay, so you notice the first three rounds go through. We have calling clone node on input with option false. So the input does not have an optional document. The second one, the document fragment, does not have an optional document. It's false as well. The third one, the text, does not have an optional document. And lastly, this clone node on the last document fragment does have an optional document. That's the one that results in not supported error. So the text presumably results in the hierarchy request error. The last document fragment with a optional document, that results in the not supported error. So what is this doing then? So node is going to be, when node is text, they do an original document imports, so the optional document. The text did not have one, so we're down here. So original clone node, and then they wrap. So I want to put in here, we'll say if node.name or node.node name text, then we'll break. Or not break, debugger. Because I believe that's what we're seeing is the text node there. I'm really quite curious about that one. So should that be $pound text? So refresh that again. Okay, so we are now inside the iteration that has a text node. So you notice here's my node. If I were to come over down here and do node.node value, it is a few spaces. Interesting. I wonder if this is let's see here. This is, I mean, it's curiously 3 spaces, which I was talking about earlier from the jQuery support test, which jQuery 164 is supported or used on here as well. You notice that the, so right now I'm inside the console and I don't see that hierarchy request error. So even though console log is asynchronous or unpredictable, it hasn't popped up here. And that seems to suggest that it's actually connected to the text issue. So I'm going to go ahead and start to step into the functions. So 2 options here are either to step into a function to start following this down as deep as it goes, or to step over the next statement and continue stepping over statements to see kind of the bigger picture of what's happening. So I'm going to step into these rather. So the original clone node is going to be native code. So you can see here native code, that's referring to the original document.clone node or element.clone node from the element prototype. Unsafe wrap. This is, what does this return here? This returns, okay. So this takes a wrapper and returns some object for that. If I were to come over here and just do a quick unsafe wrap. So it takes a wrapper and then there's presumably some property on there. So actually if we were to call node, this is what we would be getting back, the text node. So node is an empty text node, and then node, does that equal to this crazy value? False. Okay, so this is what we're getting back, this property. So we actually don't need to follow that down. Okay, yeah, so basically cloning a node with false. Let's try this out real quick. So document dot var a equals document dot create text node. I put 3 spaces in there, so now I have a is, oh, come on. Oh, I'm paused. Let's try this in a different context. We'll jump over here, go to Bing, open up the dev tools. And then from inside here, I'm going to try just a quick clone node on the text node. So we'll do var a equals document dot create element, 3 spaces, invalidated character error. Oh, not element, rather, text node. There we go, create text node. The 3 spaces, therefore a is an empty text node. A node value is going to be equal to those 3 spaces. And so now if we call a.clone node, we get that. But if we pass false, we still get that. Still get this. So we are doing what I believe they are doing, but not able to repro the issue. So what's happening right here is they're going to call unsafe unwrap. That's going to return that reference, original clone node. The original clone node is window node prototype clone node. So let's just try that as well. The import node, so that's actually not being ran on this particular iteration though. So the import node is being ran if there's an optional document being passed. But you notice on this iteration, there is no optional document being passed. So I don't think there's an import node being called right here. So this, there might be another issue with the import node, and I'm certain there is, probably with the document fragments, but not with the text elements. Right now, I'm just kind of checking out the text element to see what the issue is here. So I'm going to go ahead and just do it exactly the same way they're doing it then. So we'll go to the prototype method and node is here. So we'll call this dot call. If we just call it like that, What? This is confusing. Okay, let me jump over to my other debugger. Pass that into A. That gives us the empty text node. Empty text node. Yeah, if you're seeing something that I'm missing, Ryan, I apologize, but I'm not seeing it here though, because what I'm looking at right now is this function is going to be called. It's going to be called with an optional document passed in. If the optional document is being passed in, then the import node is being called. That is to put the node into that optional document. Otherwise, we're just going to clone the node. Maybe I see what you're saying. So if we get the if deep, so if that's true, let's see. I'm going to get, let's see if this is true. So we'll do deep on here as well. Because then we'd break into this portion down here. That might be where the issue resides. Let's see. So refresh this. So now we're going to have two booleans, presumably. First one is the deep value. Second one is the optional document value. Okay, so the refresh this again because I was actually hoping to keep the stuff inside the console and the breakpoint at the same time. So we've broken. This is on text node here. You can see that deep is true and the rest is false. So deep is true. There's no optional document. So now we'll start to just step through this. So we're going to jump into the unsafe unwrap that returns this value for us, which is just the text node. Yep, I saw that it does indeed finish loading. I just want to make sure that we're not missing something whenever, because the goal is not simply to get it to finish loading. The goal is to make sure that it loads properly with all the right data. And it looks fine. I just want to kind of be very, very granular about this. So we're going to be coming out of unsafe wrap and we're going to go into wrap. So inside wrap, it looks like the next place we're going to go is into this assert, into this is native. Once we come out of those, so we'll go into is native first and then assert, and then once we come out of those, we'll go into the get wrapper constructor function as well. So let's go ahead and just step through. We're inside is native. This is going to take us inside is wrapper. That puts us back inside is native. Now we're going to be going into assert. So if not B, we're going to jump straight out of there. Next thing is, let's see, we're going to go into get wrapper constructor as we step in. So this gets the dunder proto or the prototype of node. If is Firefox, that should be false. Okay. Constructor table.get. So this is, so that's probably, I don't know, property descriptor or something here, a weak map. Okay, yeah, never mind. So we're going to go, looks like we're going to jump into get wrapper constructor, create wrapper constructor, and register internal next. So we may step over some of these things. All right, so let's see. So this is actually construct its own custom node. So we're going through and building this thing up. Okay, so we're done. We're out of there now. Clone exists. It is that text. We have not thrown any exceptions yet. So now we're going to jump into deep. Yeah, this might, let's see here. So there is no first child, which means there's not going to be a next sibling either. So we should jump straight over this. Yeah, so first child is null. So we jump over the whole thing. Node is an instance of wrapper HTML template element. That is also false as well. So we're going to return the node, or the clone, into, well, I guess we're just returning it. Now we're doing this for loop again. Interesting. So this is, oh, okay, so now we're inside clone node for the text element, true with an undefined optional document. So this is kind of recursively calling the same function itself. So we're going to append, now okay, clone is the document. I think we might be inside the document fragment portion now. I want to pull up my DevTools and see. I still got this high DPI remote desktop issue here where I can't quite see what it's doing. Let's just press play real quick and see where that happens. So it says it's here on get child nodes. New node list. Let's see, first child, child next sibling, wrapper list, child, wrapper list, length. Let's try this again. So we do, node list is a native thing. I'm totally just rambling here at this point. This is, so Battlefield is, there is a short fix, which is, you know, modifying that deep parameter. But I want to run into the issue as it's actually executing. So that does not raise an exception here. So notice is custom object. So they have a constructor function. Whenever you call new against a function, actually generates an object and lets you put some things on that object. Either way, I think Ryan Conrad's fiddle is worth filing. So yeah, Ryan, if you haven't filed your fiddler or your fiddle that you put together, where you actually have you know, the difference between Chrome and Firefox, or Chrome and Edge right there side by side, please do so. That would be really helpful, because that in and of itself is definitely a reduction that is going to be meaningful for us. So here we're getting into multiple documents. This is oftentimes, whenever you see a hierarchy issue, sometimes it is related to multiple documents. So here we're getting the objects, remove all child nodes. Interesting. This is sounds familiar. What is this in this case? So this is one of those, by this, I mean the word this is one of those confusing aspects of the JavaScript language. Generally, whenever you're talking about it in English, we will say this is this, or this is that, and this is self, and self is this, and it's kind of confusing. This dot node name, it's a style attribute. So I wouldn't expect that to cause any issues. Let's try it again. So now we're inside of a different loop, style attribute. So just press play again. Evil Pro, so the Twitter issue, that's going to be a tougher one. The Twitter issue, if I recall correctly, is that whenever you click inside the body just once, it causes you to scroll down. If I were to pull up real quick, I think you have to be on media, right? So if I go to twitter.com/Jonathan Sampson/media, I don't think I'm able to repro this. I have seen the issue. So let's see, I'll just let the page load for a second. And I will click on the page. Yeah, see, it actually doesn't scroll me down. I mean, I can scroll down if I want to, but it doesn't scroll me down automatically whenever I do that. So that's going to be a tougher one to repro. See if I click in between these two elements. Yeah, see, clicking nowhere, I'm not actually able to reproduce this this error right now. So it's definitely one that I've ran into very similar issues before, but I've not yet been able to reproduce it. Whenever you're doing that, it'd be really helpful if you could check the URL itself, and when you check the URL, see if there's any type of hash inside there. So at the very end of it, there might be a pound sign or something like that. No, this machine that I'm on right now is, let's see. Actually, yeah, so I am funneled into, I'm kind of remoted into a machine that's a little bit newer. Actually, I don't think it's newer than 14.0. I think this is like a 14.8 or something, so this may be a slightly older build. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm not even on this. This is a slightly older build, so this build is not even 14.900 yet. But I have seen the issue before on older builds as well. So I'm going to keep kind of checking what the value of this is here to see what all is being added. Yep, usually whenever you see the page kind of jump down by itself, it's largely because there is a fragment URL inside there. What's interesting with this Battlefield site is that we're even dealing with multiple documents. I mean, unless they are making an iframe on the fly, I mean, there are no pop-ups, to my knowledge. So the only reason I could think of they would need to be dealing with multiple documents is if they're doing iframes or something on the fly. Because I'm just kind of scanning down the page real quick, and I don't see anything like that. This is related to so a couple of weeks ago I mentioned another bug that we were kind of dealing with multiple documents and document fragments and stuff, and it seems like it's in the same vein as this, but I'm not seeing the things on their site that would give any indication that we're dealing with multiple documents. Let's see, if I inspect, usually the developer tools will tell you when there's multiple documents in play. I do see a few about blank documents. So it may be that they are creating small iframes for some reason or something like that. Let me see if I can do a quick search for iframe. So they have on here, they actually are doing some stuff with iframes, and they're very small iframes. So I just ran into, it looks like there's 13 iframes, or at least 13 instances of the word iframe. And there are 4 of them rather, at the very bottom that are display none, that are ads. So it looks like there's 3 from DoubleClick, and the last one from some XP1 RU4. Yeah, that's interesting. But I wouldn't expect this code to be creating ads. This is the web components portion of the logic that we're looking at right now. So I wouldn't expect that to be involved in the creation of ads, but who knows? So there's something special in the URL. I just went to my timeline, just twitter.com, and had it happen on the second try. Yeah, so it's kind of wild, you know. Sometimes we think that these issues, as you're pointing out, it feels kind of random. You know, we had a similar issue with the. Trying to think what it was. Actually, I may be able to reproduce it on here. If you click to open up a brand new tab, and then you very quickly click the gray area where the address bar normally is. So if you do like Control T and then click that gray bar, you'll actually cause this giant region to open up and just sits there. And it always would, you know, pop up on people's screens and stuff like that, and it would feel very random, like, oh, what in the world was causing this? And in fact, if I might be able to get it to do it on my machine. Now I think I want a patched machine, but my desktop might still do it. Let's see here. If I open up a brand new thing, and I'll get that out of the way of the chat. So it might be a little hard to repro with a machine that's kind of currently under some weight here. Yep, I'm actually not able to get to repro. Interesting. But that was the reduction was, or the repro instructions were you click on, you know, new tab, and then you immediately click on the address bar, and that would cause this large region, this gray region, or this white region to open up, and it was really unsightly. But it felt like it was random. We had basically no idea how to do this until Zach Bowden from Windows Central, I believe. He had, or Bowden, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. I apologize, Zach. He had shared that, you know, basically whenever he clicks to open a tab, I'm trying to think what all so he had shared some repro steps that were very similar to that, but it was kind of a superset of that. And so, you know, we were able to identify that just clicking the tab and clicking on the address bar immediately afterwards would cause this bug to reproduce. And so there's always some type of, you know, consistent repro for these things. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly what that is and being able to scrutinize your own behavior and stuff on the level of detail that is necessary to figure out what that kind of deterministic approach is. So let me look at Battlefield here just a bit more. So debugger. I can place a blinking cursor in text boxes literally anywhere. That I would be interested in seeing. I know we have a bug where if you have something over the top of a text box, say for instance, like you have this element or an image or something like that, and it's visually rendered over the top of the text box. You have the text box here with your cursor inside there, so you can type in some text, and then they render an image over the top of that. Well, the cursor itself is not part of the web page. The cursor itself is a component that's put on there by the operating system itself. And so that cursor is always rendered on the very top of everything, always. And so if you have a menu or something that drops down, like you click here, your cursor is inside there, and then you mouse over a drop-down menu and it drops down to obscure that input field, the cursor will still be blinking through there. And so that's a known issue. We've had that one filed for quite a while. I don't know if it's going to kind of meet the bar to be fixed. There's really quite a few other bugs that might be more pressing that people would probably prefer us to spend more time on than a cursor that bleeds through. It's next to the right button in the image I just sent you. So let's go ahead and I'll open up TweetDeck real quick and see if I can check your DM. Oh, okay, I see. So this is the Google homepage. It looks like you're able to get it to put a cursor to the right of that. Yeah, like what are your repro steps? Let's see if I just go to Google real quick. Just kind of tabbing through things now. Yep, if you have repro steps, I would definitely love them. Until then, let's jump back over to this machine and see where we go wrong. Literally any site. Now, see, that's really interesting. So I'd be curious so if you can go to any website and click anywhere and put a cursor there, I'd be curious to see that, because there's a different, few things that start to kind of come to mind. One are content editable regions. And so on any website, let's see, I'll just take an example here. So I'm sharing my screen right now. We'll jump over in a web browser to, let me turn off capturing and stuff. Actually, we'll do it here with web components. So with the web components site up, I'll just right click, inspect element. And then one of the things we can do is actually go to the body. I'll do this inside here and see if we can make this a little easier to see. So I'll do document.body pin or set attribute rather, content editable, and we'll just set that to content editable. So now you notice this entire document, you notice my cursor changes so that I can change, instead of web components, oops, backspace just took me back when I wasn't expecting that. Let's try this again. So I'm going to go back to my dev tools here. And we'll set that again on the body. Okay, so let's try this again. Nope, I don't think I set that right. Document body, content editable, content editable. Let's go to here. That should be right. Let's try true real quick. It is, for some reason, just when I'm broadcasting, this computer just does not handle it very well. You notice, like, I'm clicking on stuff and not even really getting any response here. Let me just close a few things down real quick. The unnecessary stuff. Yeah, so content, I mean, it's actually not working. Let me try another site here real quick. Sampson blog or something. We'll try this. Inspect the elements, and we'll go up to the body, and we'll right click and add attribute, content editable. And that did not add it, apparently. Okay, this is fantastic. Okay, so that should be... Okay, there we go. Now it's working. So you notice, like, now I can basically come anywhere on the site and start to just type in stuff. And that places a cursor basically almost anywhere I click. You notice wherever I click, I'm getting cursors here. And so I can say, like, emulation and delete other stuff here. And so that's the content editable attribute on a page. That would be the other thing that comes to mind whenever you're saying that you can click anywhere and basically place a cursor. And so I'm thinking that, okay, that's one explanation. Another one is that there may be an extension that you're running inside the browser that is going to cause some type of element to be rendered on the page that can actually receive a cursor. And so it sounds like you're making a video for me right now, which is really appreciative. Really great. Let's see here. So can't edit anything, but shows the blinking cursor. Okay, yeah, so that's interesting. I would love to see that. Let's jump over. Looks like I just got your video. So let's see, your click in favorites. So I do notice that you have some extensions. I would ask you to turn off some of your extensions, maybe turn all of them off real quick and start to re-enable them one by one. There's one particular one in the browser, in the very top of the browser, that I wonder if it is there for making snippets and that kind of stuff. And so if maybe it is there to allow you to select portions of the web page, maybe. And so I would start with that and see if that kind of changes your experience any. Yeah, I would try disabling that one. And restart Edge just for safety as well. So basically, for anyone else who's not watching the chat, didn't change anything at all. Yes, I would try, make sure you restart Edge. It could also be that there is caret mode, caret browsing. And caret browsing, I believe, is a way for you to actually use your keyboard to navigate around. And so you might want to check the caret browsing option inside there. I thought we used to have an option for that inside the Edge's settings. I don't see it inside my settings, but I would check your settings to see if you have an option for caret browsing in there, and that might be helpful. Let's see here. I'm gonna do a quick search for. Yeah, so there's a CNET article about this a while back. When was this? This was July 2015, so a little over a year ago. F7 turns caret browsing on and off. Let's try that. Let's see if F7 does it for me. Okay, so press F7. I think that is it. Misha, the best. How you doing? Thank you for tuning in. So yeah, if you're seeing the caret anywhere you click, it's probably because you are in caret browsing. So press F7, and that should resolve it, or turn it on, turn it off. Maybe that will help kind of resolve the issue for you. So I mean, if I just, right here on my desktop, if I just went ahead and pushed F7, so you notice it's going to ask me turn on caret browsing. I'll say turn it on. I'll restart or refresh this page, and I'll just click. Yeah, so you notice, yep, okay, now I'm in caret browsing mode, basically. This is actually really good to know because I believe a friend of mine was just asking me the other day, like, how do I get into caret browsing in Edge? And I had no idea. Like, I think there used to be an option inside settings, maybe, something like that, that would enable it or disable it. But that appears to have gone missing. I think it was the always use caret browser option, and so now it's just, you know, F7 on your machine. So F7 to turn it off. Re-add. Yeah, so you know what goes inside settings. It was really interesting whenever we started the development of Edge. One of the big things was, and I'll just open this up so you guys can see the chat window here on the video. So the statement was we should consider re-adding this to Edge, that particular setting to the Edge settings, and yeah, you know, it was, the goal was to really minimize the amount of stuff in the UI and the settings and everything. If you go back and you look at on Internet Explorer, for instance, the context menu. So you go and you right click somewhere on the web page. There's so much stuff in there, so much stuff, and a lot of it was just stuff that people weren't using, and so it just built up over time. And maybe, you know, certain people on certain teams wanted their feature inside there, but it just built up over time. So whenever Edge started, whenever the app team basically, you know, had the liberty to go and create a brand new kind of shell around the browser and to complement the new engine, they really kind of put some tight restrictions on what you could put inside the context menu, and what would be justifiably placed as a high-level, you know, setting or something like that. And so they've been really great about keeping the noise down, really keeping you know, things to a minimal or to a minimum. And as a result, you know, sometimes things don't get a high-level settings option inside there. Sometimes things don't go inside the right-click context menu. You know, we've had some people in the past that have asked for a refresh option inside the context menu. And you know, I passed all of those requests along to the app team, but the reason why they haven't been there yet is because they really, you know, started from a blank slate and said what is absolutely crucial to the right-click context menu experience. And I suspect similar conversations have taken place for the settings as well. And so it might have been that we put the caret browsing inside there, but perhaps the people who, you know, were using caret browsing before then, they simply weren't going to the settings for it, and so it was taken out of, you know, for lack of use, perhaps. I think it might have been inside the advanced settings before. I'm not 100% positive. Actually, it might have been just inside. Yeah, so it was inside, according to this CNET article, it was inside advanced settings. But even still, you don't want to put too much stuff inside there. I mean, once you get to advanced settings, if I go there right now, settings, scroll down to advanced settings, there's quite a bit of stuff starting to get inside there. And the way in which we kind of show settings, which is that narrow, you know, menu out to the side, you really don't want to cram too much stuff inside there. But that's the issue, caret browsing. I'm glad we could figure that out. Let's see. What time is it? We're looking at 12:30 right now. I'm going to go ahead and cut this broadcast. I'm going to grab some lunch real quick, and I'll be back probably 30 minutes, and we'll get started again. So if you have a site that you'd like to look at, we could start to check out some mobile sites. It is now understood why Wikipedia and Disqus comments and mobile Twitter look the way they do. So if you'd like to discuss that when I get back, I'm more than happy to do so. And it sounds like even Mint maybe might have had similar issues with line heights and text scaling and all that kind of stuff. And Wikipedia has some of its own unique issues as well. And so I'm more than happy to talk about those maybe after this lunch break. So thank you all for hanging out. I'm going to go grab some food. I'm feeling a bit weak and tired right now. I'm at my standing desk, so I'm using a lot of energy, I guess, compared to just sitting and slothing around on my machine. So yeah, thank you. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.